Hi, moms and daughters.
Hi.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Mom, Dear Daughter. I am Mta.
And I'm Ati, her mom.
Yes, that is Mama. And we're so excited to be back here again, chatting to you. Thank you so much for the support on episode 1.
Yes.
This is a terrifying endeavor to be sitting down here and having these intimate conversations with your mama, but the reception from you has been absolutely incredible. So we just want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We've got so much more planned and so many more incredible kind of tear-jerking conversations to have. So to see all your downloads and streams, your comments and your messages has been absolutely incredible. So a big shout out to you. And yeah, keep subscribing, keep liking, keep, showing up and doing all the challenges with us here on Dear Mom, Dear Daughter.
Yes, and heal and thrive with us.
Heal and thrive.
And speaking of healing, I'm so proud that we actually didn't can the whole thing.
Publishing day was so scary. I don't know what it was, but hitting publish, we were literally both sitting in my room like, yo, are we going to do this? Like, is this happening? Should we, do we turn back now? Like, what do we... We did it.
So we did it. So a clap, a round of applause for ourselves as well. Acknowledging self is so important. And really, I think this is so, so amazing. And I'm enjoying experiencing this with you.
Me too.
Yes, experiencing each other as colleagues. Because now we have production meetings. We have, all sorts of different types of meetings for this project. So it's really, really so fulfilling, exciting, and also getting all the feedback from all our audiences, our community that's already growing. I didn't expect it to happen so soon after launching and being out there. So it's really, really incredible. And I'm filled with so much gratitude, that we went ahead and did it and we're having this experience together.
Yes. So shout out to all mommies and daughters out there. Let's heal and thrive. We'd had an episode planned, but in light of some of the heartbreaking stories that we've heard in the news and just all over social media, we thought that there was a more urgent conversation that we needed to have today on the topic of gender-based violence, particularly in South Africa. The stories of Olorato Mongale recently this past month have been so heartbreaking. And, for me, it is just discouraging to see every month there's a new hashtag of another woman or another young girl who's been attacked, assaulted, killed in this country. And it just shows that there is a very urgent issue that is going on and a very urgent problem that I don't think we've put enough effort in terms of finding a solution for it,
Certainly. Gender-based violence and specifically violence against women and children in South Africa is really an epidemic. It's a crisis. And we really should be having more focus on it. And focus not only government dependent, I think also as communities, as families. Our conversations around this should be more targeted. I guess we can talk a bit more about that. But this is really, really important.
It is. And I think more than just mourning, seeing the stories every month is honestly disheartening and makes going on social media or reading the news just that much more difficult and heart-wrenching and even mentally taxing. But what we hope to get from this conversation is really trying to interrogate what's broken and also really look at the problem, the root cause. What are some of our thoughts on this, especially from a psychology perspective? What is going on with our boys, with our men in this country? Do we have the solution? What does that look like? But before we get into that, how are you feeling, Mama? This is a mother-daughter podcast. How does it feel for you to have to raise a girl child in South Africa today?
First of all, as a mom, my heart really goes out to Olorato's mom. I heard in the news she's a single mom and she's an only child, Olorato, to her mom. So I can only imagine the deep pain and grief. So really, condolences to her mom and her family and her friends and community. I cannot imagine the pain. So when you were growing up, this was already a thing. You know, young children were already sexually harassed, sexually abused, etc. So raising a girl child in South Africa really comes with a lot of fears that I think is different elsewhere. I remember when you were a child, I was so mistrusting of any male figure around you, even the caretaker at school, because there would be aftercare at school and then there was a caretaker on the grounds and then security at the gate. I almost had paranoia. I would look how they respond to you, etc. Yes. And then when you were in primary school, you developed breasts and so on. And so uncomfortable, so worrisome. I constantly had to have conversations with myself, you know, to calm down, you know, don't be so paranoid, don't be so, you know, eagle watching, you know, always looking for signs. So it's always been something that is on my mind, which is very different to how I grew up. So really? I grew up in King Williamstown, Eqonce.
You're a small town girl.
Small town in the Eastern Cape. And we would walk freely, we would walk even at night. So I lived where you have to cross a bridge. I think that was the only fear, that there were, you know, some people would hang out under the bridge.
Yes.
So, but there was hot spots where
you avoid.
Avoids, but generally it was safe to walk, move around for a girl. I even used to walk. I was in primary school and I used to walk from school to my home, you know, alone without any worry. Without a single worry. I think the only worry my mom said was don't accept food and drink from people on the road.
What was?
I don't know what that was.
For what reason? Like, was it tagatwa or is it?
No, I don't think tagatwa. I think at that time there was a lot of TB, tuberculosis. So I suspect it was that. Actually, I need to confirm with my mom.
What was
the only paranoia. So I remember often, even if we're walking together, there would be maybe an uncle or a tamkulo, whoever would offer me a drink, maybe that they were already drinking, or if they were eating something they'd share. People used to eat in town, in Kiwilliamstown, walking on the street.
Yes.
Then, you know,
she was like, no, don't, stranger danger when it comes to food only.
And she would give me looks and then I knew, but no, I must just say, thank you, take it and put it in the bin. So when I was growing up, that was literally the only, you know, don't do type of thing. And I think it was centered around TB. And there was a lot of communication around TB in clinics, on radio, etc. And then raising you in Johannesburg. Now.
Wait, I just have a question though.
Yeah.
Back in your day, especially at Eqonce, would you say there were already sort of stats and like some hymns about attacks on girls and women at the time?
Not so much. They were rare, but of course they were there. Where you would hear where your pants were hiker, because there was also that hitchhiking. There we go. Hitchhiking. There was a lot of that in King Williamstown. So maybe Mtebe hiking and then suddenly was raped. There were a few stories, but they were very scanty. And there was still a strong sense of safety still for women and girls. I believe that has changed also over time. I don't think hitchhiking is such a big thing anymore, precisely because of safety. I mean, they still do it, but I think far less. But yeah, how is it for you? Because your dad and I were both quite paranoid raising you in Johannesburg.
Yeah.
So from when you were a child, like I said, primary school, even in a school setting, we worried about your safety. Even when you were a teenager now, those worries, amplified because now you're going out to a mall. I remember your dad would accompany you even when you're going on a movie date with friends.
Yes. If I'm going to the mall with the girls, best believe my dad is going to be sitting a couple tables away. Or if we're going to the movies, he'd be like a couple rows behind. And it wasn't just daddy either. Like a lot of my other friends' parents would also be like, okay, what time are you going to be where? What movie are you going to watch? What are you going to do? And then they sometimes would show up early or come and also book a seat at the movies, sit a couple rows back, because, it was always instilled in us, like, you're a girl child. It's not safe out there. I think growing up, I saw the paranoia that you and daddy felt when it came to just letting me go outside. I could see it was a bit of a tug of war because you do want me to experience things. But I think back then I felt very coddled and you were always protecting me. Like I wasn't allowed to Uber anywhere for the longest time. I think only until varsity, which I kind of understand now. Also, like I'm saying now, if I'm going to the mall with my friends, there needs to be a clear plan. Who's going to be there? Will you be chaperoned? Is there going to be an adult there or an older sibling or whoever that's going to accompany you guys? What are you going to do? I'm going to pick you up at this time and you better be there. And also just being around in the mall as well. So I think earlier I didn't really get it. I mean, of course I understood like children get stolen, but I also... the extent of realizing that it's because I'm a girl child as well took me even longer then to understand and get my head around that, especially because I'm a girl, it's unsafe. And this is big Johannesburg. Like, yay, things are happening every week in the news and it's scary and it's, but I think it was only until I got to varsity where I was like, yeah, I'm understanding what the paranoia was and why it is so scary. Because every week there would be another post on someone's WhatsApp status or Instagram stories that so-and-so is missing, was last seen this time. Have you found them wearing this, wearing that? And I'm like, it's got to the point where with my friends and I, our worst fear is we just don't want our faces to show up one day on that purple Instagram page. You know exactly which Instagram it is. Because that was the reality. Like we'd go out and sometimes you would hear stories of so-and-so didn't make it home. Where did they go? And now, it seems very devastating to know that the way I grew up and you grew up is a little bit different, because now the thought of me and my friends tracking each other is not an abnormal thing. Like I have all of them on Life 360 and we're all like, okay, message me when you get home. And we have certain techniques if we're Ubering together, that you must say something in earshot so the Uber driver can know. Be like, please call me when you get home so I know that you're home. So that they know if they don't receive a call, Uber driver knows that people are looking for you, So it's things like that. Carrying pepper spray is a normal thing. So we're overly aware of the fact that we ought to be fearful. And it feels like it's something that's kind of been trained in us from really early on, which is difficult because also now when you hear that you can't even go to the mall or the post office or, or go to school and feel safe and secure is terrifying, because do we just stay at home? We can't. Like it's such a heartbreaking thing to feel trapped for just existing as a woman
Life
in this
has
country.
To be lived. I'm wondering, as you're speaking, whether you have these conversations with your male friends, because you've got a lot of male friends in your circle. Do any of these fears come up? Do they practice any similar safety kind of measures when going out? What's their thinking?
I think I do have a lot of male friends, and we were always giving them a hard time because we're like, some of you, like, we know that a lot of them have the best of intentions, but I'm like, if we were to ever get into a fight right now, I don't know if you guys could fight as hard as we would fight for our own girls. You know what I mean? I think they obviously, I feel like for a lot of my male friends, the biggest fear for them going out is, will my phone get stolen? You know? So they don't track each other on the phone the way that we do. I think a lot of them find that a little bit ridiculous, or, I mean, of course they understand that it's unsafe for women and girls out there, but they don't have to live life so on edge. They don't carry pepper sprays. They don't have to check up on each other to make sure they've gotten home safe. Though I think some of them do, and I think it's just like, they also will check up on us, the girls that they've gone out with. Have you gotten home? But for them personally, they can just go out for a walk in the middle of the night, or pop down to the end of the street to go to the garage or whatever. So all these considerations are things that they've never had to live with, and I envy it so much. So yeah, it's different entirely.
So the lived experience of a young adult female in South Africa is very different to the young male experience.
Absolutely.
Is what you're confirming.
Absolutely.
Your experience.
It is not the same. So it's heartbreaking, and I think I'm understanding more and more why you were so protective of me so early on, and training the thing of, yay, if this person makes you feel uncomfortable, don't ever let a man touch you in this way. And if that happens, come to me immediately. Like, I was always very conscious of those things early on. But even then, I had no idea that hundreds of thousands of women are dying and are being attacked every year in South Africa. I had no idea the extent of how unsafe I was for existing. But yeah, I can't imagine the genuine paranoia of trying to raise your daughter to, you know, be free and be independent and build this life, but also be scared to exist.
Yeah, it's necessary. And I mean, we started those conversations quite early on with you. Remember, you were around 5, so still in preschool, about, you know, your body, your private parts, inappropriate touching and reporting. And if someone, I remember I hankered this one into your head, that if someone says, don't tell your mom, that's when you know you have to tell.
I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were 5, possibly even 4. When I said that, and in my mind, it was always inappropriate touching. Whenever I'd hang that, you know, make sure that you get it. And that was my biggest fear and my biggest thought around that, that maybe someone might try to touch you inappropriately, etc. So, or give you, you know, like just inappropriate behavior. And then, of course, in teenagehood, you worry about balancing, you know, not being this hovering parent and giving, you know, independence, and also still, you know, taking care and chaperoning. So yeah, I'm glad you didn't receive it too much as controlling behavior. And I mean, you did grow up and experience the reasoning for it, which is sad, but yeah.
No, it is sad. I remember one time I'd gone to the mall. I think it was early high school, can't remember exactly how old, maybe 15 or 16. I'd gone to the mall to get my hair done. So excited. And I can't remember if I was getting an Uber or if you were coming to fetch me. I don't know, but I was waiting to be picked up at the mall after having gotten my hair done. And there was one of the like car guards that had come to me, and he was just asking me all these questions. And I'm like very politely like, no, he's like, where are you from? I'm like, around here. And then I'm like trying to emphasize the fact that I'm young, like I'm a teenager, I'm in school, like please don't talk to me politely, but thank you. He's like complimenting me, you're so beautiful, you're so this, can I have your number, you this. And I'm like, I'm underage, brother, like I'm 14, like please, still won't leave me alone. And it got to a point where someone else had come to us, I think he noticed that I was uncomfortable, came over, was like, please leave her alone. goes away for a little bit, comes back, still didn't. He's still asking me all these questions, knowing that I'm a 14-year-old girl. No, didn't deter him. Still, and I think it was such a weird feeling trying to understand why I was uncomfortable, because this could just be someone who's being nice, whatever, but also I know that this is an advance that he's making on me, and I don't like it, and it made me feel sick about myself and my body and my existence. Like I felt very nauseated in my own skin. And I just remember getting home and crying for the longest time, and you were like, what's going on? Like, what happened? And I could not articulate in words what happened. I mean, I was explaining that there was this man that approached me and it made me uncomfortable and it brought me to tears. But I also remember in my head trying to figure out if I'd been exaggerating the situation. Was I reading too much into it? Why do I feel like this? Was he, but you were fuming in the face and you went back that same day and you went and found this man. You were like, is this him? Like, sorted him out. But I felt such guilt because I was like, what if I read that all wrong? You know? And it breaks my heart because, especially looking back at it now, is I know that this was someone who was doing something wrong to me, an older man approaching an underage girl and trying to make a sexual advance at her. But the heartbreaking thing is, looking back, is me sitting there thinking, did I read that incorrectly? Was I wrong to feel uncomfortable, nauseated, and, you know, so sad in my body?
Yeah. And I think you are, you know, echoing a lot of sentiments that people may feel, you know, people who are abused in however sense, feelings of guilt and shame, where you start to look inward and doubt, did I do something? What if it was innocent? Did I inspire this type of reaction? Did I encourage it?
Yes.
And obviously when I had the reaction, both you and I had the reaction that we did, maybe then you worried, oh gosh, is he going to lose his job? Is he, you know, did I just cause a big problem now? Maybe I should have just kept quiet. It sounds like that's some of the thoughts and feelings you went through. And it's very confusing, right? What's right, what's wrong, balancing how you feel and the consequences to this person but he was just talking to me and now he stands to lose his job.
Yes.
You know, so that is the guilt and shame that people who are abused feel.
Right?
Yes.
I think what scares me even more is often it starts to feel that is the narrative that comes from society as well. Looking at it, when discussing victims, what was she wearing? Why was she out that late by herself? Why did she get in the car? Instead of, why did he attack her? Why did he make her feel that way? Why did he do that to her?
Yeah. What was he thinking?
And my hope is that can now be the focus, instead of the hashtags and us crying and pleading and mourning as women in this country. We look at the root cause of the issue. And it's the fact that the men in our country are ill. Our boys are they're unwell.
Certainly, I agree with that statement and with that thought that the conversation needs to shift. Men need to come into the chat.
Yes.
They need to account for what they are going to do, right? As a community of men, right? What are they going to do with themselves and with their boys, right? I think part of the issue, which has been a double-edged sword, is women empowerment and how we're empowering the girl child from young. You know, there's a lot of take a girl child to work day. There's so many little different campaigns and things that promote girl and women empowerment in society. And we can see the consequences and benefits of that in today's society. We have women who are empowered, who are pursuing their dreams, whether in education, whether in business, whether in, top employment opportunities, but women are doing great things. And this is still a fairly new phenomenon if you think about it, because most of our grandmothers were not employed. Most of our grandmothers were homemakers. So we could say, when I say our, I mean mine.
Yeah.
We could say...
No, my granny's a girl boss.
Yeah. So we could say that my generation is probably the second generation of working women. So my mom was working women, so that's people born when in the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s. They're the ones that started working. Those were in the Eastern Cape, they were the nurses and the teachers.
Yes.
I think nationally, and some social workers, but mostly those were the professions. And then it's us, and we did bigger things, more broader things. So really the second, also if you think even about things just like driving a car.
Yeah.
Most of our grandmothers didn't know how to drive. I think our parents, my mom was like the first generation of women to drive.
That's such a crazy thought.
Be able to even to drive and then own their own cars. And then, so it's a fairly new phenomenon. So I think with that change of empowering girls and women, the boy child and men sort of got left behind, and their place in the world, in our community in South Africa, sort of started getting more and more blurred, because historically men would provide and protect. It was very clear. While women are nurturing.
Do they know what is protect and provide now?
Yeah.
But I'm that's kind of a heartbreaking thing to hear. But I can kind of hear what you're saying is that men have kind of lost their place in society, or don't know how to place themselves in society in terms of what role they actually play.
Well, research says they feel emasculated. A lot of men in today's society in South Africa feel emasculated because of the rise of women empowerment and women taking up spaces and being able to provide for themselves and lead, not only in occupational settings, so not only in the workplace, but they're also leading homes, they're leading families, they're leading communities. So where do and bakhona no ADT to protect that women can pay for.
Can call a company to come and do that job for
example.
You. Pay someone for the protect aspect then, but provide, we got that.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a really tough place. And I do empathize also with men, because also in South Africa, there's socioeconomic issues where limited job opportunities, businesses fail, etc. So women are really having a tough time in a world where their agenda is not as prioritized as maybe the female agenda, with good reason, because women were on the back foot of everything
for so long. And I mean, we can't deny that it is still very much a patriarchal society, even in these shifts and changes. But I can almost sort of see how not understanding your place or feeling that you can exist in this new world where a woman doesn't need you for anything as a man. What role then can you play if you can't protect and you can't provide in the way that historically maybe men could? What effect do you think these shifts have had on the psyche of a man, and how this could, lead to them feeling emasculated and maybe acting on that, and what's happening in the psyche of a man?
Well, if you don't feel needed, right? Then you sort of act out that you're not needed because you're not needed anyway, right? In psychology, we call it projective identification. So if you're identified as someone who's not needed, worthless, then you sort of become that in your actions. Then you don't try. Then you don't, because there's no expectations on you, or there's low expectations but I can do this for myself most. Then men sort of, take a sit back that, okay, she can provide for herself. She can protect herself. She can do whatever for herself. So why should I even bother? Why should I try? Let me just live my life. Let her, do her thing. So I think that's that. And also, the more you don't have a place and you don't feel you belong, the emptier you feel, the more dehumanized you feel. And the more removed from your essence you've become, right? So you become almost, animalistic, dehumanized, because you don't feel you belong. I think, part of the human condition is to feel connected and to have a very strong sense of belonging. Then we want to do the right thing. Then we want to, once we feel we are part of something meaningful, that's where we find our meaning a lot. So if you don't feel you have a place that is worth something, that is important, you become disconnected, and it shows up in your behavior. You start to feel dehumanized. And I think South African men are very dissociated in their acts. Something has pulled away from where it should be, because I believe that all people are born inherently good, right? And then you become a victim, I'll say, of your circumstances. Your circumstances being your environment, so where you are, what you're believing about yourself, other people, and the world, right? That is then what influences what you become. And I think, that environment of not knowing where you belong and feeling disconnected and not needed is what is breeding dissociated men who can perform these violent acts without feeling much, They're angry. They're so angry. And they're not even connected to the anger anymore. They just act out, lash out, however. So I think men need spaces to ventilate their anger. They need organized spaces, as much as we've organized girls and women so beautifully, right? We need to have organized spaces for men. There's often a joke about men's conference on social media, etc. There really needs to be men's conferences where men talk about men issues, including this. I think they are so angry, and that anger needs to ventilate. It needs to be let out. It needs a space where it can be let out, a safe space where it's just men, people who can relate and empathize with their struggles. Because here's the thing about feelings, whether negative or positive feelings, they need a channel. They need to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And you can only repress them for so long, but they will show up in other ways, whether you like it or not, whether you are conscious of it or not, but they will show up. They need a channel to release. So men, it is important that they do not repress or suppress their feelings. It is important that they have safe spaces where it's just them and they can have these feelings come out, air out with people who can identify with those and also be able to relate and hold them with empathy.
But yeah, I'm hearing you about the fact that this is sort of a retaliation or a response to them feeling lesser than, or and acting out because of that emotional repression. We always talk about how men never speak about their feelings and struggle to find the vocabulary or even just the spaces and the time to sit down and be like, this is how I'm feeling right now. I'm struggling. You know, so you're saying more of that dialogue in a men's conference with role models.
Absolutely.
Would be incredible.
Absolutely. And we can start the conversations in our families. So if you have a brother, you can start to have some conversations around feelings. I think also how we raise boy children as parents is different to girl children.
Yes.
We'll sit with our girls, we'll have, deep, meaningful conversations, DMCs. That you and I
Unpack
have
the
always
same
had.
chat for like 3 hours. Unpack, repack it, unpackage it. How do you feel?
We're very deep on connection with our girls, and we seem to be less mindful of it with our boy children. Whereas really, if we want to teach children any single thing, right, we have to, one, connect. So give time to the child and connect with them. So the tease, the whatever that we're talking about. And then you have to, after connecting them, you have to model also the behavior that you want for them. So this is particularly important for boys to have male figures in their lives who can model this behavior. So if you want your boy child to be empathetic, to be kind,
emotionally intelligent,
to be accountable, and to be able to regulate their emotions, etc. You need to model that for him as a mom and also as a father. That needs to be modeled for him. And if you see that, there's some behaviors that are untoward or that you don't like.
Like, what would you be looking for as a mother? These, like the red flags. What are the things to look out for in your son in terms of someone who might be prone to acting out violently or inappropriately, especially towards women?
I mean, I think you know your child the best. So something as simple as tone, how your child speaks to you and how he speaks to other people is important. Are they saying their please and thank you? So there isn't a difference in how you should raise a child, a boy and a girl child. It's the same. So, but we always seem to give more, what do you call? What's the word I'm looking for? More passes. Always seem to give more passes to the boys, especially with behavior. So maybe they can get away with not doing as much chores. Also, they get away more with being isolated, sitting in their room, playing PlayStation all the time. They get away with, if you're trying to engage in a conversation, they just go, yeah, mom, no, I'm good, mom. And that's that.
Yeah.
So, and we just let them be, but we need to encourage them to be able to talk about their feelings, how to talk about their feelings. So be conscious of what they're feeling in the moment and be able to name those feelings, describe those feelings. That is what I'm saying about teaching. And you can also model it by doing it. When you talk to them in that way. And you say to them, try and respond to me in this way. So you make it known to them that it's important that they are in touch with themselves and they know how to communicate whatever they're feeling. So you make it a point that they know. The same way we make it a point with our girls about a lot of things that you must express. When boys do this, you must be able to say no, do this. We coach our girls so much more, I think, generally as a society. But we need to take up that coaching also with boys as seriously. And when we do then see behavior that we don't like, we have to reprimand the boys, not give them passes. You've got to not let behavior go unchecked.
Yes. Yes. Bring out the call out culture. But I think even more than the call out culture, I think that's been the dialogue for the past couple of years now, as we've seen the numbers rise in terms of gender-based violence, is call your male friends out or call out your brothers if you see things. But I think there needs to be more urgency in actually digging deeper and fixing the root cause of the issue. And I don't think there's enough conversation in terms of male mental health, like you're saying, Mama, where men aren't talking about how they're feeling, but there seems to be some sort of disconnect with them not knowing what their place is in society. So to see it kind of play out like this, where they're acting out against women, is kind of a result of the narrative for so long being protect women or you know, training girls to be fearful, but not enough of, hey, what is going on with men? How do we help them heal? That needs to be the shift now, where we desperately need to get boys healthy and also accountable.
Yes. I think I like what you said about how do we get them to heal. So it must be done with empathy, understanding that there's been a huge societal shift. I mean, that's why we talked about, you know, generational shifts. So, and it's happened so quickly when you think about it, because it was just 2 generations ago that women were barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. It changed so quickly to where we are now. So having empathy in that, this is a historical time in our country in terms of that. It's a huge shift. And what we are seeing is a consequence of maybe our mistake, collective mistake as a country, where we did sort of forget the boy child. So we collectively, as a society, as a country, need to correct that and not, you know, name call, badmouth, etc. Right? So we need to do it with empathy. It may be hard because as women and children, we are the ones under attack, right?
Yeah, it's difficult. Like, as you're saying it now, act with empathy, I'm like cringing a little bit, because there's, for example, I saw on my social media recently, this was a pretty public, she's like an influencer, had posted about how she was at the airport recently, and this one of the men that was working at the airport made the most inappropriate joke, quote unquote, to her about how, oh, she's traveling all on her own. All you like city girls or Johannesburg girls think you can just like do whatever you want. If you were from back in my town, like I would hit you if you did this and this and this. There's this very inappropriate rhetoric amongst some South African men where it is still appropriate to, it's a normal thing to beat women who are disobedient or don't do what you like, or women must be disciplined or whatnot. And it's jokes like that that are even sexual innuendo kind of jokes against women, where that rhetoric is still underlying, and it's painful and it's harmful, because that is still, I mean, for me, the most concerning part was the fact that that man could say it to a woman who's a stranger, who he's never going to see before, and he thought it was appropriate. Imagine what he's saying back home with his buddies.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying, that it's not all a government level intervention that's needed, right? Because it's something like that. It's a systemic issue.
It is.
And it can be fixed in the family system, right? It really starts in the family, and that's why platforms such as ours, Dear Mom, Dear Daughter, are so dear to my heart, because we have the opportunity to reach 1 or 2 people. And that's 1 or 2 families who can find the information useful and use it, and there's it, impact. So if we can have enough messaging in our society, if people can be in contact with the magnitude of power that we have within our families, what are we talking about? What are we emphasizing to our children in our families? You know, there used to be a culture of, you know, shared time within a family, which also is fading away.
Yeah. We're very individualistic these days. Like everyone minds their own business, does their own thing.
Yeah, a lot of people in the family are existing in silos.
In silos, yes.
So my challenge to everyone at home, maybe from this podcast, I think, if we can start with one thing, because this is a huge problem.
It is.
And it has multi-levels, right? But if I can, challenge everyone at home to take just one thing up in order to build a better society and better future, is one, what we've already talked about. Let's focus on our boy children. Let's make sure that we are connecting with them. Let's make sure that we are modeling what we want to see in them. So we also need to be very clear on what we want them to be. And let's reprimand. Let's not leave things unchecked.
Yes.
When we see untoward behavior and think it will resolve itself. It will not resolve itself.
It won't.
It needs intervention, early intervention. So let's do that. And as a family unit, let's bring back connection. I was saying that back then, in my time growing up, it was around generations, isn't it? So 7:30 was the news. And
our generations is on SABC 1.
Generations on SABC 1 at 8 p.m. That time was literally family hour.
time.
Everybody is together.
Sat in the lounge.
In the lounge. And in between the long commercial breaks, because we had commercial breaks then.
Ooh, what a throwback.
We're having conversation. We're connecting either about your day or about, whatever it is you're watching, whatever storyline, etc. But there was engagement, as a unit. Now with phones, everyone in their room, silos, even when you're together, you're still in your own world on your phone.
All doing our own thing.
So I would encourage us, let's get back to family time, right? And let's have meaningful conversations. Let this be one of the conversations that you have as a unit with your girl children, boy children, etc. How they feel about it, how the differences, like what we talked about at the beginning of this episode, the differences between yourselves and your male friends. Talk about, ask your children the different experiences they have, your daughter, your son, and so on, and ask about their relationships and what needs to be better. And you can really be vulnerable with it if your son maybe is one of those boys that's not so in touch with his feelings, sort of go there and
talk about that. Yeah.
Talk about that, and also validate for him that it's important for him to show his feelings, and it's absolutely okay for him to show his feelings, because feelings are a human condition and they have to be expressed. Now, it's up to you if you're going to express them in helpful ways or unhelpful ways, but the feelings demand to be expressed and they will be expressed. So help them to understand that and accept it, and to help them to channel it to meaningful and helpful ways to express their feelings, so that we don't have a violent consequence in small magnitude, large magnitude.
And I think it's so important to, I think for the longest time in our society, the idea of men being emotional or being vulnerable or being able to talk about their feelings or even being able to address mental health at all. June is Mental Health Awareness Month for men's health. And I think even for a lot of women growing up, like, you're not supposed to talk about their feelings. It's interesting to see that at the root of an issue that women have been forced to face and deal with for so long, we think that the problem is that men are violent and men are angry and men are doing these horrible things. But even at the root of that, going deeper, is that men are unconnected or disconnected from their feelings. Feelings, mental health, that vulnerability is the main thing. It's the solution for everything. Just instilling in men that they can be human and they are human, and they ought to express what they're feeling inside. But I think even as a patriarchal society and growing up in a patriarchal society, that idea and that thought is still so foreign, so unfamiliar. The thought of men should cry and can cry and should be in touch with what it is that they're feeling, even if it's in their head something that is more of a women's thing. Oh, only women cry. And things like saying to women, oh, don't be such a pussy. Oh, stop crying, you know, are in this crazy, funny way leading to violence against women, you know, are causing hurt amongst the people that they are supposed to protect. It's just screams irony to me.
It does. And again, what can we do about that? It comes back to the family system, because that is what resembles the greater society. So you've got male, female figures within a family. Have those conversations. And what also the conversations can look like is asking your daughter in the presence of your son, her brother, what kind of man what's your dream man like? What kind of man would you like to live the rest of your life with? Do you want to have children? What kind of man would you want to have children with, etc.? And she will likely say a man who knows himself, who's connected to his feelings, who's accountable, who's this. So just having that conversation and having her respond in the presence of your son is validating to the son that, one, I have space in the world and it's not about protecting and providing only. Two, it's okay to be in touch with my feelings. I'm not a pussy if I'm in touch with my feelings. I'm not a wimp. I'm not a this. So women actually want these things. I don't look weak if I'm all these things. You know, so just personal reflection that is open, honest, and vulnerable within a family can be so, so powerful and impactful, because then there can be realizations both sides. And then if you speak to your son, ask your son, what's important to you in a relationship? When you think of marriage one day, you know, what do you think you could provide? What could you bring to that table? What would be important to you? And how do you think your partner would receive that? How do you, etc. So those kind of conversations between, you know, everybody that is involved can be so, so powerful.
Gonna let that one marinate.
Shall we go to our hotline? Let's see what's there.
On this platform at Dear Mom, Dear Daughter, we always want to hear from you in terms of any questions that you have, any advice that you're seeking. And also we just want to hear if there's anything that you'd want to bring to the conversation. We call it the hotline. We're opening up a family gathering right here between all of us, where, you know, we can all sit and have a conversation. This is one of those situations, especially where, you know, we'd want to hear from you. Left our number on the screen over here, so you can WhatsApp us, send us a voice note on the hotline. And the number is also in the description box below. Okay, we've got a dilemma from Anonymous here through the WhatsApp line. And she is, okay, we don't have her age, but here it is. My brother is in a relationship, and I overheard him on the phone once speaking to his girlfriend in a really aggressive and belittling tone. He's controlling and always says things in a way, he always says things like, I'm trying to protect her. I love him, but I'm scared he's becoming one of those men. How do I say something to him without destroying our relationship?
That's so incredible, because I think the answer is already contained in what we've already spoken
Unpacked,
about.
Right? It's always a really uncomfortable feeling, though, to imagine that. I think when we speak about the perpetrators of gender-based violence or men in abusive relationships, it's easy to think, oh, it could never be my brother, it could never be my friend, and you're always eager to protect your own. I imagine it's a pretty difficult and uncomfortable thing to look at the people close to you and be like, Oh,
That's precisely it, because it is our brother. It is our father.
Yeah.
And hence, we keep saying it reverts back to the family system. We can really fix this within the family system, because these people are brother, father, uncle,
son to someone. Yes.
So Anonymous, my heart goes out to you. This is a very difficult, position to be in. But I also want to commend you for even thinking about acting, right? Not ignoring what you're seeing, the alarming behavior that you're seeing. Also to Anonymous, I would want to say it would have been interesting to know her age and also birth order. So is the brother younger, older, etc. So definitely I would have Anonymous speak to the brother. Do it in a non-judgmental way. So before you approach any difficult conversation, it's important to ensure that you are in a calm space, right? So be ready for the conversation. And be ready also for potential defensiveness. So you really have to go to a very deep place of calm and knowing that you are ready for any type of response, and you'll regulate it effectively and not let it spiral into something. So be really ready for the conversation and for different types of responses in the moment. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, when you do have the conversation with him, be open and honest, but non-threatening. So I would use statements around yourself. So I statements, we call them. So when you talk about your feelings. So I overheard you when you were speaking to so-and-so, whatever the partner's name is. And I felt a little bit worried. So I thought, let me check in with you if you're okay. Your tone sounded a bit too harsh to me. So, and I wondered how maybe she might have received that as aggression, etc. So I just wanted to know, what feedback she said or how you feel about it. And then he might say whatever. I mean, he might have his back up.
He probably would, yeah.
Yeah. And then if he does have his back up, then you say, I'm not judging you. Okay. But I just felt worried, and I thought, let me speak up so we can have a conversation about it. Because if someone spoke to me like that, or if my partner or my boyfriend spoke to me like that, I would feel, then you explain I would feel angry, I would feel scared, I would feel controlled, I would feel, so you start naming all the feelings that you would feel if your partner spoke to you, and you tell him you're not judging.
Right. And probably in a way that he can really empathize. I mean, as your sister, definitely he cares about you a ton and would never accept any other man speaking to you or making you feel the way that you're describing.
Exactly.
So that's,
And also important to not push the conversation. So even if you'd said that and stop there, if he then maybe brushes you off, you said, no, she was fine. If you just leave it there, don't push the conversation. You've already had impact. Because by having the conversation, he will reflect at another time. The next time he speaks to her like that, something, a seed is already planted, something in his mind will make him think about it. And if it comes up again, you again can have the conversation the same way. So it's always about how you frame the conversation and, how you have it. So always how you feel, not think. And then when the person is defensive, assure them that it's not a judgment. You were just concerned, and you tell them why you're concerned. Again, the why is in relation to yourself. And then you leave it at that. You don't push it.
You hope for the best. But yeah, I guess this really emphasizes what you've stated, Mama, as the first stepping stone to kind of reversing the issue or tackling the issue of healing our men. I mean, on top of trying to make sure that your daughter is safe to exist in the world, and even you as women are safe enough to go outside and go to the post office, or be not so fearful of the men around you. it's important that part of that solution is that we encourage men to feel, to talk, to open up that space for connection for our boys.
And we model the behavior for them. So we also have a lot of single mothers in our society.
We do.
So our society is also changing quite quickly in that way. But even if you are a single mother, it's so important to have father figures for your boy children. Because as humans, we need both the maternal and the paternal function in order to develop appropriately or fully or well. So it's so important to have father figures. So whether it is an uncle that your child is close to, or a grandfather, or even your priest, any father figure that you trust and can model good behavior for your son, and can also have meaningful conversations with your son, is important.
I feel hopeful about what good could come out of having more of these conversations as a family, as we together, become more active in actually tackling the issue and trying to protect all of our children in society. I think we've got a very long way to go, and it's heartbreaking to know that until we can actually tackle male mental health seriously, that more women and more girls will be put in harm's way. It's really, truly heartbreaking to think of, but I'm hoping that by the time I am raising my own daughters, some relief would have happened. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Mama. We can plead with the justice system and with the government to actually do more to protect us, because absolutely there needs to be more. Perpetrators need to be held more accountable and cannot just be left to walk free. But there's a lot for us to do as families to help relieve the situation, to speak more openly with our sons, our brothers, our male friends, and create spaces for them to express their feelings that they've repressed.
And to define an identity for themselves, a new identity in this new society of South Africa. We need to help them with that. I feel hopeful too. After today's episode and our conversation, and also just reflecting on South Africa and our potential, even in the midst of this tragedies every day, the heartbreak, I feel hopeful that we can turn this around. We are a society that's come out of a very difficult time, also not too long ago, apartheid, and we beat that situation. And I feel GBV is becoming a crisis reaching apartheid level, and we can beat this too if we do it united and as a collective.
Hopeful. So that's our feeling for this episode. Hopeful. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Dear Mom, Dear Daughter. We'll see you soon.